Let's begin today's lesson with a story about love. Once upon a time, England was ruled by a king named Henry. At his side was the loving and devoted queen, Catherine of Aragon. Henry loved Catherine, and together they had a daughter. But perhaps more than anything, Henry loved the idea of a son who would one day be king. Unfortunately, Catherine and Henry's other children either died at birth or shortly after. This put tremendous pressure on Catherine, who knew how badly Henry desired a male heir to the throne. Henry wanted a son so badly that he asked the Pope for an annulment, which is like a divorce. It's the cancellation of a marriage that is recognized by the Catholic Church. The Pope refused the annulment, but Henry really loved the idea of a son who would one day be king. So Henry, inspired by the Protestant Reformation, broke away from the Catholic Church and created the Church of England. He closed Catholic facilities like convents and monasteries, which led to his excommunication by the Pope. He also got his annulment from Catherine, which was granted by the new church. Soon after his annulment, Henry married again, this time to Anne Boleyn. Afterward, the Catholic Church, having also lost many followers during the Protestant Reformation, decided it needed to take action. A meeting of Catholic leaders was called. That sounds like a world history mystery. Let's investigate. Can one meeting really change the course of a religion? As we investigate that meeting and other events, we'll take a look at responses to the Protestant Reformation, including the establishment of the Church of England, break down Counter-Reformation efforts, and analyze the impact of the Catholic Church's reforms. Are you ready, historians? During the Protestant Reformation, some leaders saw Martin Luther's ideas and other Protestant movements as a chance to challenge the Catholic Church's power. Henry VIII was one of those leaders. By establishing a new church, Henry started the English Reformation, the creation of the Church of England as it split from the Catholic Church and ended the Pope's control of religion in England. What do you think it would be like to have a king decide your country's religion? Pause here to respond. Following his marriage to Anne Boleyn, Henry passed the Act of Supremacy, declaring himself the head of the Church of England, later called the Anglican Church. By separating England from the Catholic Church, Henry asserted his authority over both religious and political matters in the kingdom, making a significant shift in power. The Act of Supremacy also ensured that future monarchs had final authority over religious matters in England. Later, the Anglican Church moved closer to Protestant beliefs and away from Catholic teachings. This change also opened the door for more Protestant denominations in England and across Europe, as leaders saw new ways to control religion in their own countries. Henry's break from the Catholic Church reshaped religious and political authority, significantly strengthening the English monarchy. It also showed how challenging the Church could redefine government and social order. How do you think Henry would react if his subjects spoke out against the new Church? He often charged his opponents with treason, which is betraying one's country. Others were charged with heresy, which are opinions that go against the Church's teachings. These accusations by the king sometimes led to their imprisonment or execution, and no one was safe if accused. No one. Henry's strict control over religious beliefs and government matters often left many people fearful and uncertain about expressing their true thoughts. Meanwhile, in response to the growing spread of Protestant ideas, Catholic leaders gathered to address challenges and reform itself. This meeting aimed to strengthen and clarify Catholic teachings during this turbulent time. After Protestant challenges like the Church of England's creation and Martin Luther's list of complaints, Catholic leaders realized they needed to answer the growing calls for Reformation if they wanted to keep their followers. In response, the Church launched the Counter-Reformation, a movement to address criticisms from Protestants, reaffirm its authority, and address internal issues. One of the main actions was the Council of Trent, a series of meetings beginning in 1545 that lasted for almost 2 decades. Church leaders gathered to make decisions on Catholic beliefs and address problems that Martin Luther and others had criticized. What changes do you think the Church may have made? Pause here to respond. One topic church leaders discussed was corruption, specifically the purchase of indulgences cited by Luther. The council banned their sale. Over the years, the Council of Trent made many changes, including better training for priests and a stronger focus on piety, a devotion to faith. The council also clarified Catholic doctrines to strengthen the Church's beliefs against Protestant arguments. For example, while Protestants argued that only faith was needed for salvation, the council affirmed that both faith and good works, acts of charity and kindness, were necessary. Another part of the Counter-Reformation was the founding of the Jesuits. Jesuits are priests dedicated to promoting Catholic education and traveling as missionaries to spread Catholic beliefs. How do you think education helped the Jesuits in their mission to spread Catholic beliefs? Education helped spread Catholic beliefs as the Jesuits taught people directly about the Church's principles. This influenced new generations and gained followers around the world. The Catholic Church responded to challenges from Henry VIII, Martin Luther, and others by making changes during the Council of Trent and creating the Jesuits. While some modifications were made, the Church did not change all that Luther and others had hoped for. Instead, the Church hoped that a new focus on Catholic principles would help the Church regain its power while addressing problems in society. Do you think it worked? The Counter-Reformation improved many church practices and clarified its principles, helping the Catholic Church maintain its position as a major Christian denomination. Despite the challenges posed by Martin Luther and other reformers, Catholics appreciated the renewed focus and clarity while remaining committed to long-standing traditions. These changes also influenced the political and social structures connected to the Church's role in European life. The Counter-Reformation efforts reshaped Christianity as a whole, influencing how religion continued to interact with politics and society. At the same time, the Protestant Reformation and the creation of the Church of England had already created lasting changes throughout Europe. As Protestant ideas spread, many new Christian branches formed, such as Lutheranism, Calvinism, and Anglicanism. With different denominations, Christianity was no longer unified under the Pope. Religious divisions often led to conflict. Protestant and Catholic rulers clashed in a series of wars across Europe. Why do you think religious ideas could lead to conflicts? During this time, many people held strong religious beliefs. With the spread of the printing press and education, people increasingly wanted to think for themselves and make their own decisions. These new ways of thinking often led to tension and even war. Remember, peasants in Germany, inspired by the idea of change, had revolted against their rulers in hopes of social reform. Although Martin Luther himself didn't support their actions, these revolts highlight how ordinary people increasingly demanded fairness and independence. For example, in France, the French Wars of Religion were violent conflicts between Catholic and Protestant groups in the 1500s. Thousands lost their lives battling over religious beliefs. Later in Germany, the conflict continued with the Princes' War, where Catholic forces fought Protestant princes and their soldiers in the 1540s. After years of conflict, the Peace of Augsburg was signed in 1555, ending the Princes' War. This treaty allowed each German prince to choose either Catholicism or Lutheranism as the official religion of their territory. Remember, Henry VIII had similar control over both government and faith in England. So, based on the information you've learned today and in previous lessons, do you think the Protestant Reformation was successful? Pause here to respond. Although the Treaty of Augsburg brought some religious peace, it also divided empires based on religion, and tensions continued. Pushing back against authority and people's desire for independence continued to create conflict. These religious movements also spread beyond Europe. In places like England and the Netherlands, Protestant missionaries traveled to the New World to worship freely. Remember groups such as the Pilgrims? What do you think might happen when people begin to believe they can challenge or even defy their rulers? These movements set the stage for future protests and revolutions, as people began to believe they had the right to question authority and have more say in their own lives. The religious and political changes of this period reshaped societies. They also created a foundation for ongoing changes in Europe and beyond. Challenging the Church's authority had far-reaching consequences for social and political structures across Europe, especially in England. Henry VIII's break from the Catholic Church to create the Anglican Church reshaped England's religious, political, and social landscape. Beyond his efforts to end his first marriage to Catherine, Henry is perhaps best known for his 6 marriages. While none of his wives gave birth to a male heir that reached adulthood, as Henry so badly desired, his second wife, Anne Boleyn, before Henry had her executed for treason, gave birth to a girl who would later become a well-known queen. We'll hear more about their daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, in a future lesson. Next time we do a deep dive into a lengthy war between Christians that divided Europe and reshaped the continent. Until then, keep exploring the past and shaping the future, and remember to always be clever.
Hey, hey.